Hello, nerds! Nerds for Yang! Let's move on to money. So I did an update on the money race in a previous video, and a lot of people were saying, oh, well, you know, Buttigieg or Beto, they're in the back pockets of Wall Street, and that's why they're making more money. So luckily, just a few days ago, the New York Times did a really good summary of where people are getting their money and how much they have and how much they've spent. They spent a lot of time kind of compiling all of that from the required campaign finance reporting. So link below for the full article. But I wanted to highlight some of the most interesting things that I saw from that article. So first, here is their summary of the main candidates, at least I'm going to share here the top 10, and how much they've raised and how much cash they have on hand and how much they've spent. So clearly, when you look at the number of contributions, you see the amount of money raised from contributions. You see Bernie, Harris, Beto, and Buttigieg all well into, you know, 5+ million. I mean, certainly Bernie is close to 20 million, and Kamala is over 10, and Beto's 9. So I would say tier 1 is probably Bernie, Kamala, and Beto with, you know, 10 or more million. You've got Buttigieg, you know, nipping at their heels with 7, and then you have a lot of well-known national figures like Warren and Klobuchar and Booker with 5 million. And then you've got Yang with 2.4. You keep in mind there's 18 candidates in this race, so being number 9 is kind of middle of the pack for raising money. And then when you look at how much money they have left, I mean, this is where you see a couple really interesting things. You see Bernie not having spent very much as a percentage of the money he's raised. So he's got 16 million in the bank. You've got Warren with 11 million in the bank. You got Gillibrand with 10 million in the bank. So a lot of these guys either raised money right when they announced, also probably had money from, you know, maybe Senate campaigns that they didn't spend that they kind of transferred. But in terms of having enough kind of resources to really compete for the long haul, you've got to be a little bit concerned about Yang. I mean, he's got 1 million in the bank. Everybody has more money in the bank than him, you know, even Inslee. So when you get those emails from Yang asking to contribute, just know that he's up against some well-funded competitors. And now let's look at this next summary of how much they've spent. What is going on with John Delaney spending 7.8 million? That's like a startup that just blew through a bunch of money and isn't really getting a lot of results. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with John Delaney, but I would argue I don't think he's getting a lot for his 8 million in spend. Warren and Bernie spent probably the next highest, but they also have the, you know, some of the biggest war chests. What's really kind of, I don't know if I'll say it's concerning, I mean it's good if you're a Buttigieg supporter, is that Buttigieg spent almost nothing. I mean, he has spent 0.7 million. He hasn't even spent $1 million. So he doesn't even make the top 12 for spending. He spent less than Jay Inslee, and we know he's just getting mentioned in the press. So this is like what they call earned media, and he's not spending money to run internet ads or you know, send direct mail. He's getting coverage for free in the neighborhood of dozens of articles a day that are often really glowing. So you've got, I know a lot of folks in the comments, and I myself have said, well, I don't feel like Buttigieg is very specific in his policy proposals, and he doesn't really go into very many details. If I were Buttigieg, I would say, and so what? Because this guy is, people keep giving him money. He keeps getting coverage. He keeps showing up in the polls in that top tier. And why, if that ain't broke, I can't blame him. On the other hand, when you think about Yang, he spent 1.3. You know, I wouldn't say he's spending it. He's not like a Delaney, like a drunken sailor, but I can't fault him for spending 1.3. That's not. That's actually, he spent less than most of the top 10. Only Tulsi spent less, and I would argue he's getting pretty good results. Not nearly as good as the Buttigieg results in terms of per dollar spent, but probably better than Delaney and Warren, I would argue, just in terms of all the energy that he's been driving. So next is, people were saying Beto and Buttigieg are funded by, you know, companies or corporations and lobbyists. So this is a percentage of the money from donors who gave $200 or less. So the higher the percentage, the more kind of grassroots support you have. And the smaller the percentage, then it means that you probably have a lot of people writing huge checks and potentially not being sort of a voice of the people. But also, the other reason why small donors are important is because you can go back to them a few months from now and ask for another 20 bucks. Whereas if someone gave you, you know, thousands of dollars, they'll hit their campaign limit in terms of what they're allowed to contribute. Let's keep it real. Buttigieg has 64. He actually has more small donors than Yang in terms of a percentage basis. That's probably because his base is very large. So he may have also more big donors than Yang, but it's not like this candidate is funded completely by corporate interests. And Beto, I know a lot of people are saying, well, Beto, you know, he's got 59% from $200 or less nations. Yang has 63.6. So if you wanted to say, well, who is getting a lot of money from big donors, Delaney, interestingly, has less, you know, he's not even in the top 12. I think he's, you know, less than 20% or so from small donors. So most of his money is from big donors. Castro, only 30% are from small donors. Inslee, only 34% from small donors. Kamala Harris, only 36.8% from small donors. So Harris, Klobuchar, Inslee, Castro, they have more money from big donors than small donors. Beto, Booty, Yang, they're all in the 60 range in terms of percent from small. So you really gotta give those other candidates credit. And Bernie, 84% of his donors are small donors. So his support is really grassroots. And just as importantly, that's gonna be a money machine for Bernie to be able to go back to that very large donor base and ask them to top it up. Whereas if you're Castro or Klobuchar or Harris, you're probably, a lot of your guys are already maxed out. So that's it for this week. Hope that was helpful, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you want to get more updates on what's going on with the Yang Gang kind of race for 2020. And also, we are trying really hard to get 5,000 signatures for our petition to get Andrew Yang on 60 Minutes. I'll link to that below. Please sign and share this video out, like and comment. We're trying to get as much interest and awareness of the Yang candidacy as possible. Every little bit helps. Certainly, you know, like we just talked about, you can give money, but actually just kind of drumming up interest and letting other people, friends and family know about the Yang candidacy goes a long way as well. And in some ways will have more impact than writing checks. Obviously, if you can do both, I think that would be like the nirvana for the Yang campaign. So we'll see you next week. In the meantime, keep it real.